making one of my favorite soups.
Welcome to the
Tomato
JR72 Challenge. I am Animated Mel, and I am your mental and wellness coach for
As always, perfection is not needed, but consistency.
We must first lovingly accept what is. You can't heal a body you hate.
I just want to take a moment to say thank you to all of you all for coming. This community is designed to support you in that time. It's really to utilize when things are bad and when you're at your lowest.
I started to learn about emotions. I started to learn about finding root causes, right? Starting to understand addiction and how addiction is not, once again, the issue that we are using a negative stimulus as a coping mechanism.
Part of my mission is to make sure people know that everything we need comes in a natural form. It's already here for us.
I am determined. I am strong. And I am ready.
We must first lovingly accept what is. I often say, you can't heal a body you hate.
This is healthy blood cells. And that's what we're aiming for. So you can see the contrast. Okay? What you do matters.
Thank you all for coming. Be blessed. Here we are. Justin, how you feeling?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm feeling well, man. It's been a very long month, and I'm happy to be getting to the close of it. About to take a short break, go see family.
Nice.
You know?
Yeah, you need that. Like every time I hit you up, I usually don't hear back from you for a couple of days, and usually you're on it. And I was like, man, he's busy ever since you were running that challenge.
It's the challenge, and actually, that kind of sparked what we're going to be talking about today, which is the dry fasting, but the challenge, and then just the actual fasting, you know what I mean? And everything that comes along with that. And then, of course, all the other stuff I got going on. So it's been a long month, but a good month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Shout out to the AHA family. I hope you guys have been having a great month. I know some of you all had joined us with the AHA R72 challenge. So we are going to be closing that out officially tomorrow, starting our refeed. So I hope you guys are excited about that. Shout out to Justin's community for those who are tuning in. Hopefully you guys have been getting value from seeing our collaboration. I did see some people just mentioning that they really enjoy us working together. So, gonna keep that going.
Yeah, I love our conversations. I always learn. I feel selfish when you and I meet because, we were chatting yesterday. It was like, yo, can we talk about dry fasting? I don't know a lot about it, but I know you do. And I can pretty much ask you a bunch of questions. I just love, gleaning from your knowledge, Chris. So I appreciate it.
Hey, my pleasure. And I think, we're right on time because I just put out a video on Instagram. So shout out to the Instagram family, those who are watching live. I know that you guys saw the more recent video I did talking about dry fasting and how it's essentially an inflammation buster. And I got a tremendous amount of feedback. People just saying they wanted to learn more about dry fasting. Yeah. So tonight, I want you guys to be active. I know I see Instagram questions coming in already. We're going to be talking to Instagram, getting those questions, as well as taking questions on YouTube. So everybody just, get your questions ready. Justin's going to be, kind of starring and setting aside the questions on YouTube so we can make sure that everybody is taken care of. And yeah, we're going to have fun tonight. So Justin, have you tried dry fasting?
No, but see, this is the thing. I'm going to probably in the next couple of weeks based off of the information that I get in this chat tonight. So that's why, yesterday when I hit you up, I was like, yo, can we talk about dry fasting? That's why. It's something that has been on my radar, honestly, since I spoke with Shane Idleman, Shane. And then the last time that we went live, your brother was on here and he was blowing my mind with the amount with the dry fasting that he has done. Because he did something crazy, like 10 days?
Yeah. It was either 8 or 10 days. Yeah, something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, I haven't done it. And yeah, that's honestly what I'm looking forward to tonight is, kind of picking your brain and finding out how should I start my first dry fast,
Right. So the first question I got on Instagram, just kind of before we get started, someone had asked if we're going to be doing a dry fasting challenge. And I actually did put together a protocol for dry fasting. It's been a little while ago now. We don't do challenges like, hey, let's do a group dry fasting challenge. However, that's something that we could put together. I mean, you guys, especially on Instagram, I mean, YouTube, y'all let me know over there. Actually, they did already. They told me a long time ago they wanted a dry fasting challenge. So the protocol I put together was a little bit more advanced. But if we do a challenge as a group, we'll probably do something a little more mild. But yeah, that's actually a really good idea,
Yeah.
dry fasting challenge. So sure, why not? We'll put that together.
Yeah. Let me know when you
Um,
do too. I might join that one.
okay, so we the first thing I want to do is kind of lay some ground rules so that everybody's on the same page. What is dry fasting? How is it different from water fasting?
Yeah.
And then Justin, please feel free to chime in, ask any questions, especially from someone's point of view that hasn't done it before. I think that'll be great.
Well,
So
you're crushing it because that was my first question on my list here is what is dry fasting versus water fasting, right? I mean, we all
okay, well
know
there we go.
that you're not going to be drinking any fluids, but like what all else is entailed beyond that?
Yeah. It's the KISS method, man. Keep it simple, stupid.
Mhm.
Like dry fasting is literally just not consuming anything. You can think about putting your hand over your mouth and just you don't consume anything. Now you can always go deeper with it, right? You can always go to what are you consuming mentally? What are your ears consuming? But today we're just going to talk about the physical aspect of dry fasting, which just means you're going to choose a period of time. It could be a day, it could be 3 days, and for that time frame, you're not going to eat or drink. Now, the big difference in dry fasting that confuses people is you have what people have termed soft dry fasting and hard dry fasting. So, soft dry fasting is what we're going to be talking about tonight. It is where you still shower, you still brush your teeth, you're able to come in contact with water. You're not going to drink water. So, when you brush your teeth, you're not going to swallow any water, but you're still going to be absorbing a little bit of water through the mouth and through the skin. Hard dry fasting is where you literally avoid water like the plague. And I have tried both methods, and what I have determined is that, especially in modern times, soft dry fasting just makes more sense, especially considering that most of us don't have the ability to properly inhale water through our skin, which the skin does, take in water. But you can enhance that process by not wearing clothes. A lot of the clothes we wear will wick water out of us. So to kind of be the reverse effect. So you'll see a lot of people that practice like breatharianism, or however you say that word, breatharians. They will be shirtless and kind of wear as few clothes as possible. And then you spend a lot of time outside where you have a lot of natural water in the air and the atmosphere that your body will absorb. So the hard dry fast, you don't take showers, you don't drink, you don't, brush your teeth or anything. Soft dry fast, you can still do those.
Yeah. It's funny. Like y'all might not believe me, but Chris doesn't have access to my computer and my notes, but he's going like right down the line because that was my next question, right? Was I've heard people say that if you're going to dry fast and you want to do it, perfectly, that you shouldn't even take showers. And my question, and so I like how you kind of divided up into soft versus hard. But my question too, though, is with the hard dry fasting, like, does it make that big of a difference? It's not like you're absorbing, massive amounts of water in a shower, even brushing your teeth. We're talking about what, milliliters probably, right?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. You can absorb a cup of water in a shower. People take pretty long showers,
Yeah.
but they do. You'd be surprised. You can absorb a lot. It depends on many factors, right? But here's the thing that I have experienced. So I did 6 days of dry fast. That was my longest dry fast. was 6 days. And when I did that, I became hypersensitive to the water I absorbed through the shower. So it's not inconsequential, right? It's not
Okay.
like, oh, you're just not going to notice a difference. There is definitely a difference. Now, the quality of the water in your shower makes a huge difference.
Right.
If you guys are in in nature and you've got access to a spring or a natural body of water that's not contaminated, you would probably be benefited to go ahead and get in the water, you know. But in our modern time with tap water, most of us are on, you know, municipal waters. They're very poisonous. They have heavy metals. They've got, you know, chlorine. They've got fluoride. They've got prescription drugs in it. Like there's a lot of crap in our water, and
Yeah.
your body will respond. So there is a difference, but the question is, how big of a difference does it make? It's not that big, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know. But yeah, and I think the point that you just made is important. Like, I'm on city water, and yeah, like I have to install filters in my house, because if I don't, there's just like this white crud that collects at the bottom of my tea kettle after literally like one time boiling it. It's insane.
Wow, that's bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's city water for you.
Yeah, man. Go ahead.
No, sorry. I was just gonna say, for some reason I can't star comments, but I've been copying and pasting some. So
Okay.
if you've asked, I just want to let everyone know on YouTube here that if you've asked a question, I am collecting them, and I will get to them as well when they fit in here in the proper place. But Chris, you were gonna say something?
No, I was just gonna say, for those of you who think it's inconsequential to, you know, filter the water, make adjustments to your water, that is a huge thing. So
Yeah.
I want to make sure we understand, like, when it comes to the difference between soft and dry fasting, water coming in contact with water being that key component, I'm saying it's inconsequential just because for what we're going to actually experience and be aware of, you're probably not going to see a big difference. But as it relates to like your water in general, like what you're bathing in, what you're brushing your teeth with, what you're bathing your babies in, I cannot stress how important water is. And filtering the water is only just one piece of it, you know. It's and I don't want to get too deep into it, but there's an energetic component to the water as well that filtering will not touch. Like you have the physical contaminant in the water, let's call it chlorine, and then you have the energetic signature of chlorine that remains in your water even after you remove it. That energetic signature, that frequency, can be then transferred to your body, and our body will pick up on that frequency. So there is another layer that you could put on top of just filtering your water. But for now, removing the physical contaminant is a great first step. And most of us do have the resources to do it if we really think about it. Like most people have cars and things of that nature where they've spent, you know, $10,000, $15,000 or even more for a vehicle. And it's really just prioritizing in your life what's important. Your water really is that important. And, you know, you can go out and you can research and maybe find a filter or something for the whole house, less than $10,000 that you can maybe even finance. And, you know, I personally think it's well worth the money.
Yeah. What do you recommend typically, like reverse osmosis for the house?
I mean, reverse osmosis is a great tool. It is very readily available. It's easy to access. That's a great option. If in my perfect scenario, I would use distilled water. So
Yeah.
like my plan is to have a house built next year, and I'm gonna see if I can just have a distilled water system put in when you build the house out, because it's much cheaper.
Yeah.
The problem with distilled water is it'll clean your pipes.
Yeah.
So it kind of has a reverse effect when you put it in old homes.
Yeah.
But yeah, reverse osmosis is a really good option.
Cool. All right. So y'all, I see all your questions coming in, and I am copying and pasting, but I promise that we will get to those because they're coming up in kind of my outline here of the questions that I wanted to run through. So let's talk about what probably everybody wants to know if they're like me and they're new to dry fasting. What are the primary benefits of it, and how does it differ from water fasting for fat loss, for autophagy, all the stuff that we're interested in?
Okay, so I mean, the elephant in the room, how much weight can you lose with dry fasting? That's what most people want to know. And most people will say that dry fasting is about 3 times more effective than water, or
Really?
maybe other fasting methods. Water fasting is pretty efficient, but dry fasting is really, really efficient. So you're going to see, I was just listening to one of our old interviews with Justin Howe, who lost 204 pounds using primarily dry fasting.
Yeah.
And he said on his first fast, he did 3 days and lost 14 pounds. So that's crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. 14 pounds in 3 days.
Yeah, 14. It was a 13 or 14 pounds in 3 days. Yeah. Then he did a 7-day dry fast. Justin went hard with the dry fasting. Yeah, I think he did like 12 days at one point. But he lost 38 pounds on the 7-day. So now, for reference, Justin was 400 pounds when he started, but by this time, when he was doing this longer dry fast, he was probably under 300 pounds. So even for those of you who are not necessarily that size, you're still going to see crazy weight. I get really bad backlash when I tell people this because people just assume I'm lying. But when I did my dry fasting, I think it was it might have been the 6th day, or it might have been like a 4-day. Yeah, actually, I think it was a 4-day dry fast. I did 4 days and I lost 20 pounds.
That's crazy. You imagine losing 20 pounds in 4 days. That's like a month and a half's worth of weight loss the traditional way, It's
insane.
Yeah.
So what we need to understand is that's on this. You get on the scale, you lost 20 pounds. Now, that doesn't mean I lost 20 pounds of fat. Dry fasting is going to, and the video that I put out that went so well we're talking about inflammation.
Yeah.
So one of the biggest benefits of dry fasting is it is a inflammation buster. So when you look at juice, water, and dry fasting, each one kind of have their disease or their area of expertise where they do really well, better than the other methods. Dry fasting, nothing is touching inflammation like dry fasting.
Interesting.
And through your studies, Justin, I don't know if you've heard this, but like a lot of influential healers will talk about inflammation is at the root of most disease.
Yep.
So the reason why dry fasting is so powerful is because it really gets to the core of most disease very quickly. And you can see all types of relief from back pain, arthritis, just all sorts of issues like that are caused by inflammation.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and especially like all the different foods that we eat. I was thinking about that for myself today, right? Because I was listening to Ben Azadi from Keto Camp. He was at one of the conferences that I went to last month, and he was on about seed oils. And so I was watching one of his videos today. I was like, man, I really got to get back to cutting those out of my diet because I've let them slip back in, because I eat, I'll eat some processed foods here and there.
For sure.
I'm sitting here thinking like, maybe I feel so miserable because, the inflammation that's caused by those things lasts like beyond a year. Right. So then let me ask that. Would the dry fasting speed that process up and kick those things out of my body potentially faster? If it's an inflammation buster, right? Like in those seed oils and those other, junky foods that I eat here and there are like messing with my mitochondria, messing with my cell membrane, and it's causing inflammation. Maybe dry fasting could speed that process up.
Yeah. Well, let's think about it. Where does the toxins like to hide? The body uses mucus and water to suspend toxicity in the system. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, oil is kind of resistant to water. So if you had a buildup of oil in your system, which we're not talking about the oil itself, because the acids in the stomach are going to break that down. But, if we were talking about sludge and oil and stuff like that in your system, maybe synthetics, I'm going to push you towards juice, because juice, the acid from the juice is going to help break that stuff down. But in the sense that we're just talking about a collection of toxins from consuming seed oils and stuff, it's hiding in your fat stores, it's hiding in your the water, the inflammation in the body. And so by releasing that so like what happens with dry fasting is your body still needs water. We're made mostly of water.
Yeah.
So where does the body get the water from? And it already has a ton of it because it's stored it around the dis-ease.
Yeah.
So when you start dry fasting, it can begin the process of releasing that toxicity through your breath, through your bowels, and through your urine. You are going to still pee when you dry fast. And then as it does that, it doesn't need the water for that anymore, and it'll rehydrate your cells. And the beautiful thing about using inflammation to hydrate your body is it's structured water. So the body's not taking any extra energy to structure the water. So you actually hydrate when you dry fast. It's weird to think about, but you actually will see, better hydration levels.
Yeah. No, I think what you just explained, that kind of makes a lot of sense to me, right? And how it would help with inflammation and healing other, like you said, diseases and illnesses. If you're not putting water in your body wants to extract that water. And if that water is being, used to surround those things that shouldn't be there in the first place, so then it pulls that one, correct me if I'm wrong, it pulls that water, which then releases that inflammation, those other things for your body to then attack and expel that much more quickly.
Yep.
Boom. That makes sense to me.
The longer that you dry fast, your body will start manufacturing water as well. And this is why it's great at fat loss, removing fat and stuff like that, because it'll break down components of the fat and utilize it to help manufacture water.
Right.
And so
extract the water from it. Yeah.
Yeah. It'll extract it. It will absorb it from the air. It'll pull it from inflammation. So you've got several different components that the body will use to hydrate and sustain itself on a dry fast. But now, well, you had mentioned, you asked about autophagy earlier too. And I see this question, which I'm sure you had already, but I just figured it kind of go well. Someone was asking about the loose skin with the dry fasting. So
I got that. Yeah.
As you're kind of asking about autophagy, this question's like no loose skin with dry fasting ? The thing that you guys have to understand about dry fasting is it does boost autophagy. Okay. But where people get in trouble with dry fasting and where you can see loose skin, if you do it right, you're not going to see loose skin. But where you can see loose skin is if you are doing dry fasting and then you're also eating, right? You're not going to dry fast forever and you're not eating well. When you're not combining your dry fasting with proper dietary strategy, are you going to see like that traditional loose skin that everybody gets from traditional diet and exercise? No. But you probably are going to see more than what you should have, or, just having it at all. If you're not hydrating well when you're not fasting, and if you're not eating hydrating foods. So that's important to understand. But as far as like autophagy goes, autophagy, I can't give you a percentage. I don't have my laboratory yet. I don't have my research facility, but I could tell you from experience that autophagy ramps up much more quickly than with water and is much more intense.
Okay.
So if you were to do water fasting for 14 days, that would probably be equivalent to like a 4-day dry fast.
Yeah. Yeah. Now that you said that, I don't remember where I heard it. It could have been from you. Like I get too many inputs anymore. It could have been Dr. Jason Fung too, though. But I think, like typically what they say is around the 24-hour mark of water fasting is when autophagy tends to kick in. But I've heard that with water fasting, it's much, much quicker, like maybe 12 to 14 hours without food or water. Of course, like you said, like I don't know how many studies have been done to prove that that's the case, but yeah. So that then, I mean, that goes into a question here that Emma had asked. Like, I think it was Emma. Let me just double check here. Yeah. Sorry, it was Tasha. Is a 24-hour dry fast beneficial, or should the minimum be 3 days?
So the timing of the dry fast is really up to you and where you are. If you guys have been part of the AHA community, you've been fasting already, you should be very comfortable with a 24 to start. If you're brand new to the community, maybe you've never even heard of dry fasting, it might be good for you to start with like 16 hours. And one thing that I will say too, with dry fasting, sleep does count. I know new people to fasting, sometimes they don't count. So if you're asleep for 6, 8 hours, whatever the case is, that does count. So if you sleep 8 hours and then you basically don't consume anything for the first 8 hours of your day, that's 16 hours. Now, if you are you're being intentional, you want to make sure that as you break your dry fast, because you got your 8 hours of sleep, your 8 hours of wake, you want to break your dry fast by sipping water. It doesn't matter if you're doing 16 hours, 24 hours, or 3 days. You always break your dry fast by sipping water. And this goes back to, we was talking about autophagy and loose skin and all that. If you want to make sure to get the most benefit out of it, you have to do it this way. If you don't, your results are going to be different. So what is a sip of water? I always do this because people are like, I don't know what a sip is. Here's a sip.
Yeah.
That's it.
Half
It's
an
just-
ounce.
it's
A
half an ounce.
tablespoon.
It's just literally, probably less than half an ounce. It's just a sip. And I mean that, right? So I usually will tell people never drink more than 16 ounces per hour. When you come off of a dry fast, that regulation changes. You just want to sip. It's not about getting a certain amount of water in, because remember, your body has been generating water. It's been pulling water. So you might feel dry mouth, right? Depending. Usually if you hydrate well going into it, you don't get the dry mouth for days. But just because your mouth is dry doesn't mean that you're dehydrated. And if you start drinking water too quickly when you come off your dry fast, especially if you've been dry fasting for days at a time, it could be detrimental. No different from if you were to eat like Chinese food after a week-long water fast.
Yeah. And that actually makes me think of an interesting question. I don't know what the answer is. Obviously, when it comes to refeeding after longer water fast, right? We want to be very mindful of the food that we're putting back into our body. But when it comes to the refeeding and breaking of the dry fast, could it be dangerous to like really rehydrate yourself, especially considering what we were just talking about? If some of these things are being released in your body, the water that was surrounding it that we were talking about, the inflammation and the disease is released. So it's kind of like there and available. If you drink a bunch of water, will it then like flood back towards those things? And does that question make sense? I don't know if it makes sense. It makes sense in my head. I've got a picture in my head, but I can't verbalize it.
Restate your question again.
Yeah. So what we were talking about before, right? That made sense to me, as you were saying that water tends to surround the inflammation and the disease that we have in our body. So when we dry fast, the water is then extracted and those things are allowed to be targeted that much more quickly, right? And expelled from your body. But if you rehydrate really quickly after a dry fast, will that send all the water rushing back towards those things that haven't been expelled and then kind of solidify it in your body again?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean,
yeah, sure. What a weird question, Justin. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, like so we got to look at it like it's a process. You know what I'm saying? These things don't happen instantaneously. It also depends on where the health of your organs and the elimination pathways are, how quickly stuff will move. So if the body we look at inflammation like it's mucus or something. We look at it like it's a barrier or a tool that the body uses as a defense. So in order to remove the toxicity, it lets the barrier down. It removes the defense. It starts extracting the material. If there's still leftover material when you begin rehydrating, yes, you can see. So I guess the way that might look is when you start dry fasting, if you know you have inflammation in your lower back and it causes you pain and discomfort, you start dry fasting, you might notice that that pain and discomfort goes away. And then you start drinking, rehydrating, and you might notice that the pain comes back. Maybe it's not as intense. Maybe it's not every day like it was. You might see some, like you've gained some benefit, but it may come back. It takes time to completely eliminate toxicity in certain areas of the body. And also the body won't target exactly where you want it to target. It's going to prioritize what needs to be prioritized first. So sometimes our attention is on one thing and there's something underlying that is of more concern to the body that it's working on. And so it is a process that you have to be kind of committed to. This is why I like documenting, have a journal, write things down and try to like scan your body holistically to see what's going on versus just trying to focus on one area that you want to see benefit. You'll learn a lot more and you'll understand the body. But what I will say is what's going to help tremendously with not seeing like the inflammation just return in a large amount is how you break your refeed and then what type of lifestyle changes you adopt afterwards. So, raw food is a great segue from water fasting and dry fasting to help continue the detoxification without seeing the body kind of revert, So that's a great tool.
Yeah, good. I am going to ask you specifically about, the prepping and the breaking of my first dry fast. And for anybody else who's got those questions, that's coming up. But I kind of want to double down real quick on the benefits of dry fasting. So we talked about obviously the weight loss, right? Which is really like a secondary side effect of just improving your health through dry fasting. But you said it's almost like 3 times as fast. I think that's insane. 38 pounds in 7 days. Obviously, you will regain, a good amount of that weight when you rehydrate, right? The water weight will come back, but you're burning pure fat the entirety of the time that you're fasting. So we got weight loss is about 3 times greater than water fasting. Inflammation. So you're saying dry fasting is like the inflammation buster, like the number one method for attacking inflammation. What about, so Aaron had a question. What effect does dry fasting have on diseases, high blood pressure, diabetes? This links into a question that I was going to ask you. What does dry fasting do to certain hormones? So if we're talking diabetes, what does it do to insulin? What does it do to testosterone? What does it do to estrogen?
I got a question similar to this too, talking about like medication. Can you take medication with dry fasting? So I'll try to kind of bundle this all together. Dry fasting is almost like the ultimate technique you could use for harmonizing the system. The body has a natural inclination to move towards homeostasis. When we eat, even drinking water, different activities are all going to detract from the harmonization, depending. Dry fasting is one of the techniques where you're essentially removing all the barriers to that homeostasis that the body wants to get to, and the body holistically is going to start moving there much more quickly. Like I said, much quicker than even water fasting. So when we talk about like balancing of hormones, the chemistry of the body is going to begin resetting.
Yeah.
Now that reset, this is the part you guys got to understand, that reset can look very erratic. It can look like, oh no, my pressure is weird. My sugar is weird. My insulin is weird. You got to understand that, especially if you're dealing with these diseases that are associated with monitoring these numbers. We've got these cool devices now. We can monitor these numbers. Expect to see erratic behavior in your numbers because think about a pendulum. Okay. Think about a pendulum and just think that, okay, with the pendulum, the goal is to get the pendulum to be perfectly still and plumb. That's the terminology a construction worker would use. You want the pendulum to be plumb. It's perfectly up and down, right? In order to get the pendulum perfectly plumb, it's going to sway to the left for a while. It's going to sway to the right for a while. It's, it might spin a little bit. And eventually, with time, as long as there's no forces acting upon it, it will plumb out, So I want you all to think about just your pressures and all these different things going on. Fasting is removing the outside stimulus that's causing the erratic numbers, the pressures going up and down. Fasting is going to remove the stimulus that's causing it, but there's a force that's still acting on it that has to eventually kind of settle, and then eventually it'll settle and it'll plumb out. So the process of fasting, you can see your numbers go high, you can see them go low, and then over time, you're doing it, you're eating well, you're maintaining a healthy disposition outside of fasting, and then eventually it'll kind of normalize. But it's also important to understand that what we consider normal is not normal for everybody,
Right.
So in America, what is considered the diabetes, whatever the A1C is for diabetes in America, was like 0.6 or 7.5 is like pre-diabetes or whatever, or that might be officially diabetes. You go to Canada and the numbers are different.
Interesting. Yeah.
So we really just need to pay attention to our own system in order to see, okay, is this working for us? But even when you change your diet, there's that period of time where you have to adjust and get used to it. It might make you feel sick, but is it part of the detox process? Because if it's a health-oriented diet, you're getting better water, you're getting better nutrition, you may feel poor for a while as the body expels that excess mucus and inflammation and toxicity. You might not feel good. And then after a while, it settles and you're like, oh, this is good.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I had crazy blood sugar crashes when I lost all the weight that I did, because I'm pretty certain I didn't get any blood work done, right? Because I was in a rehab at the time for 9 months, but I'm pretty certain I was at least pre-diabetic. And when I made those first changes, the first thing I changed was what I was eating, and I did not feel great for 2 or 3 weeks, even though I was eating way better than I had, because I wasn't feeding my body that sugar, which was another drug that I was essentially addicted to at the time, right? So yeah, I like how you said that. Your body, if you, with dry fasting, you're saying it is like a hard reset for everything, but just be mindful of the fact that you might not feel amazing while you're doing it the first couple of times. And I like too how you mentioned, you and I were talking about this via text over the weekend, about monitoring your own body when you're testing out different things. We were talking about how both you and I, we don't like to test too many variables at once, because then, if we feel better, it's like, well, which one worked? But I'm always writing down, how did I feel today? Because I forget that stuff in an hour. I won't even remember what I said a minute from now, So you got to journal that stuff out and be like, oh yeah, 2 weeks ago, I did a dry fast and I slept better for the next 3 days. I completely forgot about that. Maybe I should do another dry fast because it improved my sleep.
Mm-hmm. And then you have to look at and improving your sleep. How does that affect your day? How you interact with people, your workflow,
what you eat,
sleep, how you eat. Sleep is a fundamental reset that we have every day. So if your sleep is poor, man, I did a video talking about the impact of screen light, talking cell phones, laptops, televisions, the impact of screen light on the habenula in your brain, where it actually seeds depression just because you're up at night, past 11 p.m., and you're looking at a screen. It doesn't matter what you're watching. It could be the most motivational thing you've ever seen, but just because you're watching that screen, it has a negative impact on, the chemistry of your body, in the sense that it's like a micro depression every night. It makes you just a little depressed. And so that also, affects, builds into the sleep talk. Yeah. Also, I wanted to say too, with the dry fasting and medications, and this kind of ties into a question I got on Instagram. When you dry fast, you cannot be taking medications that are going to that require you to eat or drink liquid.
Yeah.
Can you do it? Yes, you can, right? Because then you could just break your dry fast with some water and take your pill or whatever. I would just say I don't necessarily recommend it.
Right.
Now, if you want to do water fasting to resolve the issue that why you're taking the medication, you can actually use water fasting to resolve your blood pressure issue and then utilize dry. Or if you want to use like essential oils to bring your blood pressure normal and then use dry, some of you all are rock stars. Y'all are all about experimentation and you're just going to do it cold turkey.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and tell you to do that. That is up to you. But what I'll say is we've had people do that. And I'm going to tell you that you just need to monitor yourself closely, especially a lot of you guys will be working, dealing with family, operating vehicles and stuff. If you're going to be pushing yourself like that, you need to be like at home, just chilling.
Yeah.
Like that can get, a little wonky. I'm not really a big fan of telling people to do stuff like that.
Yeah, well, and you and I, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure we see eye to eye on this. Like dry fasting is probably like the ultimate end all be all, but that doesn't mean like if you can't do dry fasting, you can't do anything. Like there's still things you can do. Like even if you have to take medications with food, right? Like you could do some intermittent fasting, and even if you're taking it with just a little bit of food versus a full meal, that's still going to put you in, a calorie deficit. It's going to get you closer and closer to where you want to be. Just because you can't do something perfectly, like if you have to take a sip of water to take your medications and it's not a pure dry fast, it's still, 99% more of a dry fast than 95% of the population is doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Just, this is where it's cool to like get consultations, ask questions, figure out how to approach. If you guys have like, you've got medications, you've got little nuances going on, these general discussions might not be the best. It might be a good idea to reach out and, get some like specific information. I know someone was asking about headaches on their dry fast. What I would say is like, if you're experiencing headaches on your dry fast, what you want to do is prep. A lot of people skip prepping. Don't skip prepping with dry fasting. Don't skip it with water fasting either, but definitely not with dry. Prep first. You may find that your headache is coming from caffeine withdrawal, or, if you're sugar withdrawal, or we ingest so much chemicals and so many drugs that we're not familiar with. We call it food and it's not. So that it might be coming from that. So through a preparation process, you could begin the process of detoxifying, and that way you don't have the headaches on the dry fast when there's nothing you could really take to help. But also breathing exercise are amazing for dry fasting, whether you're dealing with a headache or nausea or some of the other more extreme issues that you might experience with dry fasting. Go look up Wim Hof. They call him the Iceman. He teaches some really simple breathing techniques that can help you almost instantaneously. Another good option would be to have like an enema kit or schedule a colonic during your dry fast. And then that way, once again, we're not doing the hard dry fast. We're talking soft dry fast. You could get yourself some hydration through your bowels, but also move some of that material. It's like the body is taking trash out to the street corner, and then the hydration, the colonic or whatever, the enema will come and be the trash truck and take it out. And so that might help you feel better on your dry fast.
Yeah, I love that. So Rose asked, does dry fasting regenerate cartilage?
So dry fasting does not regenerate cartilage. The only thing that can regenerate cartilage is the body.
Yeah.
The way you're going to get the body to regenerate cartilage is going to be through nutrients and minerals. It needs resources to regenerate cartilage. So through extended dry fasting, coupled with, being intentional about ingesting certain nutrients, the sun being a very primary one as well. You could dry fast, so you could get sun, which some people probably think that's kind of weird because you're outside, maybe sweating and stuff. But you you get so much more benefit from everything that you do when you're dry fasting. So whether it's sun, grounding, or like I said, breathing exercises. So it's really, really beneficial to do that stuff. But one of the tools you could use along with your dry fast, especially if you're certain areas on your body, you could do the comfrey. You could do the comfrey root, the comfrey flower or leaf. Sorry. You create a pulpus. So you basically take a leaf and you kind of bang it up a little bit. You're going to get the juices flowing, and you just wrap it on your knee, on your wrist, wherever the cartilage issue is, maybe your lower back or whatever the case is. And then you have that there while you're dry fasting. You will boost the body's ability to absorb the nutrients from the comfrey, and you'll see results faster. You could do it without the dry fasting, but if you combine the two, you will see an improved benefit. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then Just Glowing asked, how is collagen production affected by a dry fast? Getting all the nuanced questions for you, Chris. Testing him. You're testing him.
Collagen production is something that I actually haven't researched much. I haven't looked into much. So I can't give any specific information, or I don't have any specific recommendations or examples.
Yeah.
All I can say is holistically the body does regenerate and improve the production of stem cells.
Mhm.
It'll balance hormones, it'll balance pressures. So I can't tell you like how much or what but I could say that it will have a benefit.
Yeah.
If that's something that you're interested in. But unfortunately, I can't, get too nuanced.
Yeah, no, and you're good. I can't either, certainly. But I think it goes back to like the last time I went live with you, we were talking about, just the benefits of autophagy. And you just mentioned, like our bodies are capable of healing themselves. Like I truly believe that God created our bodies fully capable of healing themselves. And so if dry fasting is really good for autophagy, this is what we said last time, like it probably does do something, but at the very worst, it isn't gonna make it worse. Like it's probably gonna make it better, but we can't give you like an actual number on how much better is it going to make it.
Yeah, and by the way, I'm sure there's probably some research out. It's just one of I'm only one person.
Yeah.
I do tend to lean towards things that are more interesting to me, but there are supplements that I can recommend. One of our affiliate partners, the Root Wellness brand, has a collagen supplement that helps boost collagen production. Now, you wouldn't take it while you were fasting or doing the dry fast. If you're doing water fast, you could take it. But what you would do is you would take it when you're on your eat days or when you're taking in water. And once again, because you have been dry fasting, that dry fasted state does make your body very ready to absorb, right? So this is why it can be very detrimental if you eat toxic foods after your dry fast. But if you eat beneficial foods and things that are nutrients and things of that nature, you get added benefit. Real quick, Justin, someone asked on Instagram, what are my thoughts on using perfumes, lotions, and body products during a dry fast? That is a great question.
Yeah, that's good.
Do not use perfumes, body lotions, and other products during a dry fast, because just like with water, you will absorb that into your skin. And most of us are using store-bought products, Johnson & Johnson, Suave, Axe body spray, and then Tom Ford. These products are not being used with whole ingredients that are healthy. And if there are whole ingredients that are healthy in the product, there's also stabilizers, chemicals, colors, dyes, things of that nature that are going to be harmful. If you want to use something, it needs to be a natural whole food product. So basically, if you would not put it in your mouth, don't put it on your skin. Okay, that's the rule of thumb. Coconut oil, would you eat it? Yeah, most of us would. Okay, you could probably put that on the skin. You know what I mean? During your dry fast. So that's kind of like how I would approach that.
That's good. All right, so you were talking about headaches, right? And next up on my list here, going down, was, probably a lot of people are wondering, is dry fasting safe, right? Like, what are the potential risks or dangers or cons of it? Headaches would be one, which you're saying that can be remedied if you're proactive about it, right? And you prep properly, detoxify. You could also do the breathing exercises. But what are perhaps some symptoms that when I go into my first dry fast, Chris, like, what should I be on the lookout for? Like, what would be something that if I started experiencing it, you'd be like, yeah, you should probably break your dry fast if you experience this?
Well, I wouldn't say that there's any particular detox symptom that well, if when I usually recommend for people to break, it's because their mouth dries up.
Okay.
So that's an indicator that I use as a safety protocol to, when I'm giving people general information about dry fasting. But this is also based on somebody who has been prepping properly. Because if you do not prep properly, you may feel that your mouth is drying up on the first or second day, which shouldn't be happening. If you prep properly and you go into it hydrated, then you should be able to go 3-4 days before your mouth gets dry. As a matter of fact, you're probably going to find that your mouth makes an excess of water. You might find that your mouth is really moist during your dry fast for the first few days. So that is one indicator, once again, going through it properly, that, okay, it's probably time to go think about breaking.
Mm-hmm.
But with dry fasting, it's not that you experience like these crazy, unique detox symptoms. What it is that you're going to experience detox symptoms at a different intensity compared to water, juice, or mono fasting.
Right.
So, for your hunger pangs, which is the most like prominent water fasting detox symptom, those are probably going to be non-existent. So a lot of people are going to feel like, man, dry fasting is easier than water because I'm not hungry. But when we talk about low energy, low energy, when you do water fasting, it may come towards the end of the night. It may be earlier in the day, but it's like mild. You can still get around. With dry fasting, you might like be sitting still for too long and just want to fall asleep.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you might experience it more intensely. Your man, dry fasting is so different. The most that I experience is just like, man, my energy is the biggest thing with the dry fasting. Like,
it's low or it's higher?
It's low, man. Like it'll get low. You kind of, you might start feeling sick. Maybe it depends on the person. You might just feel sick. Like compared to water fasting, it takes about 14 days before you get to that level. With the dry fasting, it was a fraction of the time.
Yeah.
Where I call them flu-like symptoms.
Yeah.
So you could experience flu-like symptoms within the first week of dry fasting. I mean, it's but I'm just trying to think, because it's with water fasting, the detox symptoms get a lot more nuanced. If I'm being honest, it's just that dry fasting is just more intense, but it's not like all this nuance. For example, a lot of people experience like acid reflux with their water fasting, but then they don't experience it with dry fasting. Not to say that you can't. I'm just saying, like, it's far more common with water than it is with dry. So it's hard for me to like really talk about like what are kind of those nuanced things you're going to experience with dry fasting. Probably one of the biggest things is I overlooked it. Thirst. Like, you're going to be thirsty. Your main craving with dry fasting is being thirsty. So the important part is with water fasting, you're like, okay, I don't want to give into eating, right? With dry fasting, the main thing is you don't want to give into drinking. But if you do, same thing applies as if you were going to break it normally. You want to give yourself 24 hours to break it, and you're just going to be sipping water.
Okay.
You know, you don't want to be guzzling water, and you want to give yourself a day before you start eating food.
Okay. So to break a longer dry fast, it's just water for 24 hours before you even reintroduce food.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, I know there were several people asking about the dry mouth, and as you were talking there, I think you answered it, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Like when I experienced those kind of, you called them flu-like symptoms, they are the detoxification symptoms on longer water fast. Something that's really helped me in the past is to drink a glass of water with just a little bit of salt. I imagine if you were to take a little bit of salt on a dry fast, it would dry you up more, but I could be wrong. Like, would you recommend taking salt on a dry fast if you're experiencing some of those like flu-like symptoms?
No.
Yeah.
No salts, no electrolytes, none of that stuff. I have never done that. Obviously there's not a ton of people that talk about dry fasting. A lot of people are scared to talk about it because it can be very dangerous when it's not done properly.
Right.
But that's not something that I would recommend, because even when you take salt, like when I do recommend salt, number one, I'm going to recommend like a Celtic salt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Or if you just, you want a complete salt, like unfortunately Himalayan sea salt, which is the pink salt, is not a complete salt. And so you want to take a complete salt, and then when you take it, you're just taking like literally a grain, and then you also need to drink water with it to get the benefit of it.
Right.
So once again, that's kind of like, okay, we're doing the dry fast. Now, look, I'm going to say this, because I say with water fasting, I tell you guys this too. If you're doing a dry fast and you're at a point where you want to continue, but the symptoms are just kicking your butt, what can you do? Well, yeah, you could take a small grain of Celtic sea salt and some water, and kind of take a break from it and go back into dry fasting if you wanted to.
Right.
I mean, you could do that, you know, if that's the goal there. If it's just like, okay, like I don't want to break it, I don't want to take a break. If you feel like you could push through it, go ahead. But if you feel like, okay, I'm about to quit, like this is too much, then yes, having a little bit of Celtic salt, drinking some water, once again, sipping it, and just giving yourself that break would definitely be better than saying, okay, I'm just going to break the dry fast. We're transitioning to water only, and we're going to go ahead and begin our refeed after that. So,
yeah. And then too, like on this topic of the biggest struggle with the dry fasting is, you know, thirst, obviously, and potentially getting a dry mouth. Several people have asked about, can you go for walks or do workouts while you're dry fasting? I'm sure, I mean, and again, we'll defer to your expertise here. I'm sure in theory you could, but I don't know if it would be, you know, always the wisest thing to do, right?
yeah, once again, you know, I'm assuming these questions are probably coming from people who either have not done dry fasting or might be new to fasting. So the answers are going to be different based on where you are in your journey. If you are acclimatized to either dry fasting or water fasting, just meaning that, you know, maybe you've been doing it consistently over the course of a month or two, you'll notice that you have a lot more leeway with what you can do, whether it's exercise, working, etc. When I started dry fasting, it was later in my fasting journey, and I was an electrician at the time. I remember distinctively working during a dry fast. It was summertime in Texas, so we're talking 90+ degree weather. I'm outside working on light fixtures and things on the side of buildings, on top of roofs and all kinds of nonsense, and I was doing it, you know. Yeah. But does that mean that I'm going to recommend it for a newbie? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
So
I'm not going roofing or doing electric work when I do my first dry fast, man.
Yeah. Like stay at home.
I'm staying at home in the air conditioning.
You know what I mean? Be as comfortable as possible. Is it cool to take a walk? Sure. You know, that's light work. You could take a walk. You can sit under a shaded tree. I'm not going to recommend that y'all are out in the sun, just full sunlight, like working out, doing exercises. No,
All right, Chris. So I know how to break it now, right? I'm going to sip on water for the first 24 hours. And before I even refeed from the fact that I haven't been eating during this fast either. But what does the prep exactly look like? Because we've talked to you've hinted at it that if you're getting dry mouth within the first, I think you said 2 to 3 days, then it's probably because you didn't prep properly. So other than making sure that I'm really well hydrated going into it, should I be eating a certain way? Or are there other things that I need to do to prep myself? And what does that prep look like? Like, does it look different than water fast prep?
Yeah, they're very similar. The preps are very similar. I have made some adjustments. So someone actually asked on Instagram about the DR96, which is my dry fasting protocol. So if you guys are listening to this and you want a particular protocol to go learn about, just go on YouTube, look at find a healthy alternative, and then put in 96, and then you can learn more about that fasting protocol. But the preparation is essentially the same. What we're going to do is eliminate breakfast first. So I recommend a week, take 7 days to prep. We're going to eliminate breakfast and basically go down to 2 meals a day. That means no snacking in between meals. We're going to do that for 2 days, and that's going to be really our area of focus. During that time, we're also going to increase our water intake. So I recommend, and this is usually for people who are kind of brand new, whatever, I'm recommending a gallon of water a day. And Justin, I always see you drinking your water, so if you're regularly consuming water, you may not need to go up to a gallon a day. But this is for people who they don't drink water, or
Right.
they say they drink water, but it's like they have them 16 ounces of water in those water bottles, and they don't even finish a whole one a day.
Right.
So you're gonna do the gallon of water, and it's not gonna hurt you if you do the gallon and you are hydrated. You just want to make sure that you never drink more than a 16 ounces of water per hour, and you never guzzle. A lot of people, they'll be like, oh, I got to do a gallon, and they'll try to guzzle a gallon at the end of the night. Don't ever do that. It's harmful. Not only is it not going to help you, it's actually harmful. So after a couple of days of that, literally like the day 1 and day 2, then you're going to start playing with the portion of your foods. I call them like your dense foods. So something that for example, a Snickers is calorically dense. It's only that big, but it's
they got smaller. When I was a
calories.
kid, man, a side note, but when I was a kid, Snickers were like twice as big as they are now. It drives me nuts. They're also a fourth of as expensive.
Right. Yeah. Like I don't know what they were like a 25 cent when I was younger.
They were. Yeah. And they were like this big, and now they're like this big and 250.
250. So right, but that's an example of a calorically dense food, meaning that it's very small in quantity, like in size and mass, but has a ton of calories. You want to be eating lighter food, right? Stuff that has lots of water in it. You want to be eating natural foods. So on day 3 and 4, you want to focus on eating those lighter foods. And then I would even push it a step further. On day 4, just do 1 meal a day. Just do 1 meal that day. So your first 3 days, you're eating your 2 meals. By day 4, you want to be doing 1 meal a day, and you want to have a big focus on raw foods, fruits, vegetables, stuff with high water content, and that'll help prepare you. Then on day 5 and 6, I usually tell people focus heavily on juice, meaning get yourself half a gallon to a gallon of juice each day and just drink that. And don't worry about consuming solid food. Just drink the juice. On day 7 of your prep, you're just going to have water. And then on day 8, you'll start your dry fast. The benefit of doing it like this is we talked about the headaches. You're going to eliminate a lot of the precursors for detox symptoms, the headaches. You're going to eliminate like the hydration issues. You're going to make sure that you're hydrated really well. We talked about utilizing like colonics and enemas and things of that nature. You're kind of doing some of that pre-work by drinking that juice ahead of time. It's not perfect. It's not, obviously everyone's different, but this is a great start. And then, of course, you're giving your body a break from eating solid foods. So you're transitioning your body into not consuming anything solid, which makes the transition to dry fasting easier.
Yeah.
Now, typically on the water day, which would be day 7, the water day is when you're probably going to start to feel like hunger because you're just taking in water. When you're doing the juice, you're probably going to be fine, because when you do let's say a gallon of juice, you're getting in the amount of calories that you would from eating, but it's just in liquid form. So by day 7, you're doing the water, you might start to feel that hunger because your digestive system is still activated by drinking water. You come in on day 8 with your dry fast, now you're deactivating your digestive system, the hunger pangs go away. So you've essentially created like this amazing gradient for yourself. And that's how I recommend starting the fast.
Yeah, I like that. I wrote that all down. We got 2 MAD, so 2 meals a day for 2 to 3 days. You're going to increase your water intake to 1 gallon a day if you're not currently in the habit of drinking water. On day 4, you're going to move to OMAD, so 1 meal a day, focusing on raw foods and foods with high water content. Day 5 and 6, we're going to move to a juice cleanse or juice fast. I know some people don't like the word juice fast. They'll call it juice feasting. I do want to ask though, with the juices that you're talking about, you're not talking about like apple juice that you buy from the store, right? You're talking about like juices that you actually make yourself.
Yeah, very good question. Yep, got to be homemade fresh pressed juice, or you could buy it, but it just needs to be fresh pressed.
Ocean Spray ain't gonna cut it. You're telling me?
That's
those corn syrup.
Nah.
Country Time lemonade. And then so day 7's gonna be water only. And then day 8, you're gonna start your dry fast. And man, I tell you though, like looking at this, especially if you're talking someone who is brand new to this, you're going to lose a ton of weight and feel so much better before you even get to day 8's dry fast. Like, yeah, that's going to be quite the protocol there.
Let me also say, by the way, if you can get past the prep, the rest of it is actually easy.
Yeah.
The prep is designed to temper you, right? Are you serious? Are you really serious about this? Or are you just playing? Or are you just motivated for the moment? Not only does it separate you from your fast for basically a week, it also makes it gets you in the process of getting consistent, being regimented. Because if you just jump into dry fasting, can you see benefit? Yeah, but what is it going to look like on the back end when you start your refeed? So the preparation is important for facilitating a proper refeed, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's something that you like, me, I've been fasting for like a decade now, but a lot of the fasts that I've done over those 10 years, what I did outside of the fasting wasn't ideal. It was for like the first, 3 years, but then I slipped back into bad habits, and it's doable, right? Like I still fasted, I've still maintained my weight, but I will tell you, like the last time we spoke, right? Like after I had been talking to you a lot, I was like, I'm going to do a fast perfectly, exactly how Chris outlines it. And it was the easiest fast I've ever done because I wasn't, because I wasn't doing all the other nonsense, that I knew I could get away with because I used fasting to burn the fat off. But like as you were outlining that prep there, the one thing I wanted to point out too, just in case there's anybody who this could benefit, he's talking about like focusing on raw foods too for that week. Like one thing you really want to pay a lot of attention to, and I know this from personal experiences, the detoxification process is really, really difficult if you're eating a lot of sugar coming into a fast, regardless if it's a water fast or a dry fast. If you can eliminate that sugar, 2 weeks out from your first longer fast, it's going to be so much easier. And now, again, it's doable. You can eat sugar the day before you fast, but I'm telling you, I've done it both ways, and it's way, way harder if you're eating a lot of sugar and carbohydrates, refined and processed carbohydrates going into the fast.
Yep. And somebody asked on Instagram, does the dry fasting put you in ketosis, which is a great question. Yeah. Burning ketones, that's like what fasting is known for, switching that fuel source and utilizing something that's much more efficient. And that's where a lot of the benefits are going to come from. Interestingly enough, I can't tell you if dry fasting puts you in ketosis faster, but my assumption based on just, my experience would be yes. My brother Steve will probably know for sure because he actually tests his ketones. And Justin, I don't know if you have any insight on that or not.
No, I think your brother popped into my head too right before you mentioned him, because I think that's where I likely picked up the fact that you enter into autophagy way quicker. And again, I don't have the research, or I can't point to exactly where this is right or wrong, but again, intuitively, I would think you would enter into ketosis quicker.
Yeah,
could be wrong, but I would think you would. Okay, I just want to make sure that I have covered everything that I wanted to ask. I mean, I feel like I don't know about y'all. I mean, I've seen some comments coming in here, and I feel like just talking about this has hyped some people up, and I feel hyped up to do this dry fast too. So I'm going to be doing one in the next week here, and now I know exactly what to do. So yeah, last question then. For me at least, and then like I said, I've been mining the comments here, so I've got plenty of questions that y'all have asked too. But a couple of you asked this as well. What should my first dry fast look like? Like, how long should it be? Because you mentioned, and some other people are asking, like 3 days versus 24 hours. You mentioned if you're brand new to it, like 16 hours would be totally fine. But like for someone like myself, for the people in your community who are, have been following you for a long while and doing water fasting for a long time, like, should we just shoot for a 3-day dry fast, or should we test out a 1 day first and see how it goes?
Yeah, good question. Someone literally just asked this in the chat on Instagram too. So I'm going to recommend for those who, you've been fasting, maybe you're fairly healthy, maybe this ain't your first rodeo. I would say 3 days is I would kind of put the cap there.
Okay.
At 3 days, just because 3 days it's going to be enough time for you to see the benefit of dry fasting compared to water. But if you're hydrated well and things of that nature, it'll probably be before you get too deep into the woods where things start to get more challenging, just daily habits like going to work, dealing with children, spouses, etc.
Right.
And then of course, if you're not doing your prep perfect, you're not fasting for so long that there's an impact there. So it's a pretty safe amount of time, but also, for those who are looking for weight loss and stuff, it'll give you enough time to actually drop some fat, because with dry fasting, you do lose a lot of quote unquote water weight, more than what you would with water fasting. However, as Justin mentioned earlier, you get to your fat loss very quickly. So it's not just water weight, but, it's going to look crazy. You know what I'm saying? The amount of weight you lose. Now, one thing that I always tell people, make sure you pay attention, tape yourself, tape your waist, tape your bust, tape your neck, your wrist, your thighs, because what you'll notice is, let's say you start off dry fasting at 200 pounds. And then you dry fast for X amount of days, you lose 15 pounds, and then you gain 5 pounds back. So you lost, let's say you lose 10 pounds in 3 days. Let's just say that's how it kind of all ends up. You think, dang, I gained 5 pounds back. If you tape yourself, you'll notice that your inches will not go up, because a lot of the weight that you're going to gain back is internal fluids that your body manufactures for digesting food and water, because now you're doing that again. You know what I mean? Whereas when you're dry fasting, those processes go to rest. So you wake your stomach back up, stomach acid production, bile fluid, different fluids that your body manufactures, they will start to, so you're going to gain weight, but you'll notice that it's not the weight you lost.
Yeah, good. All right, Chris, you ready for some questions? Again, I apologize. I haven't been able to star any of these, so I can't toss them up on the screen here, but I do have people's names and whatnot. So Demita asked, is dry fasting hard on your organs? I know I've gotten this question often, most often in terms of kidneys, right? Is fasting good for somebody who only has one kidney or has had a kidney transplant? But is dry fasting bad on your kidneys, your liver, or any other organs?
Yeah. Dry fasting can be harder on your organs than water. That's a great question. Um, one of the detox symptoms that you all might experience during your dry fast is a dull sensation, dull pain or sensation in certain organs and systems, and that is something that you do want to look out for, especially if you have weak kidney, like if you've got low functioning kidneys and things of that nature. Now, understand that dry fasting will not cause a discrepancy. It's not going to cause you to have like low functioning kidneys. But if you already have low functioning kidneys, yeah, you're going to want to keep your dry fasting to a minimum. We want to actually build up the functionality of your kidneys, and then you can start doing longer, dry fasts after that. So it's going to be very important that you prep really well. This is why the preparation is so important, because if you didn't ask that question, but you prep really well, it's going to cover your bases. You're going to keep your fast to a minimum. You're probably not going to have problems. But if you got kidney problems and you don't prep, right, and you go in and you do a 6-day dry fast, you may notice that your kidneys are not functioning well.
Yeah.
So, it will not cause any problem, but it may highlight issues if you already have them. You have known issues. So just do the prep. That'll cover the bases. Keep your fast short, and then self-monitor every day.
Yeah. All right, let's see here. Tasha had asked, what can we do for fasting insomnia? This is something, honestly, that I've experienced several times when I've done longer fasts. And I think we've talked about this before in previous meetings, where a lot of it has to do with the increase in adrenaline when you're doing longer fasts. What I've found that has helped me is to do some kind of like de-stressing activities during the day. So light exercise, walking, yoga, even light weightlifting, just to tire myself out. And then also I try not to do it too late in the evening, because if I drink these herbal teas later in the evening, then I end up waking up and having to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. But some of those can help with the insomnia that you get. But honestly, like every once in a while, like in a 72-hour fast or longer than 72 hours, I just know that like that second night, I'm going to be amped up. And the cool thing is too, though, is like I might wake up, like I might sleep from midnight till 5, like get just 5 hours. And like y'all, like I usually need 8 hours to feel good. But when I'm fasting, like 5 hours of sleep, I still have like a highly productive day. And you catch up on that sleep after the fast is over. So.
Right. So being prepared for it, just knowing it's going to happen, you obviously know, because that's where your question come from. One thing I didn't mention earlier, you got all these ideas, all this knowledge floating around. I'm glad. This is why the questions are great. Essential oils can be used during the dry fast. So people asked, can you use perfume and cologne and body lotions? No, but you can use essential oils. So I would recommend lavender, the brand that we use, doTERRA. They've got one called Serenity.
Yeah.
That's designed to help you sleep. I literally just started testing this product that's designed to help you sleep. It uses a form of light therapy. I had a great first night with it. I'm not ready to really talk about it, but that might be something. I know you could use it on a dry fast, so that's good. So we'll have more information about that as me and Justin are both kind of playing around with that. So
yeah, isn't that funny how that worked out? Like messaged you over the weekend, like, yeah, I just got some myself. I was like, that's funny, because I'm going to be testing them out in like 2 weeks from now. We will definitely keep y'all posted on what our results are as we journal out. We document what the results are from that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see here. This one says, so Nubian Roxana asked, so during her dry fast, her mouth was wet, but her tongue was disgusting. How can we help remedy the detox tongue during dry fast? I think you've mentioned before, Chris, like a tongue scraper, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's literally the best I got for y'all, man. Like
Yeah.
when you're dry fasting, your options are fairly limited. And you know, I suppose that in an extreme circumstance, you could maybe get yourself like some, once again, spearmint essential oil or maybe peppermint essential oil. Um, and that could help with the headaches. I know somebody asked about headaches earlier. You can rub the peppermint on your temple and stuff for the headaches or behind the ear, but you could potentially take a drop on your tongue to help. And then I would hit it with a copper tongue scraper. But that's pretty much the best that you can do. Like with the dry fasting, that detox tongue can come in fast and hard. It just, it's one of them things that goes away with time. Also, once again, going back to like our affiliate partners, they have a product called Clean Slate, which has been instrumental for people with detox tongue in general. Now, Clean Slate comes in a liquid dropper. So once again, it wouldn't be a pure dry fast. You know what I'm saying? Actually, I take that back. You can't use Clean Slate with the dry fast because you have to drink water. Right. But what you could do is you could take it leading up to the dry fast, and then that'll help because you're doing the work ahead of time. So during your prep week, take Clean Slate. Like getting ahead of this stuff with dry fast, the way you got to kind of do it.
Yeah.
Oops. Sorry.
Very good. You still hear me? Lonnie asked, so he said that he's having, or this could be a she, I apologize. Lonnie, he said, I'm having severe joint pain and back and hip pain while dry fasting. Is that a detox symptom, and should they switch to water?
Sorry, I couldn't hear.
Yep, no worries. So Lonnie's having severe joint pain, back and hip pain while dry fasting. Wants to know, is that a detox symptom, and should they switch to water?
So this kind of ties into what I mentioned about like the organ discomfort and stuff like that. Yeah, it is because you're dry fasting. Dry fasting's not causing it, but it is showing deficiencies, right? So yeah, it'd probably be better to go ahead and switch. If the pain is fairly intense, it'd be a good idea to go ahead and switch to like water or potentially even mono fasting. You guys can mono fast with sea moss gel, where you just simply get yourself some high quality sea moss gel, and you could take 2 or 3 tablespoons instead of a meal, drink water in between. And that would help to people have been asking about like cartilage and just healing different organ discomfort and stuff like that. That'll help. Also, you guys could do a castor pack, depending on where the organ discomfort is, especially if it's like your liver or something like that. You could do a castor pack. Once again, castor oils is safe to absorb during the dry fast, and that would be helpful for like organ discomfort, if kidneys, adrenals, spleen, whatever system area you got issues, put the castor pack over it and let that diffuse into your body overnight.
Good. Tasha asked an interesting question. So she's currently on a 21-day water fast, on day 3 of a 21-day water fast, and wants to incorporate a dry fast. Can she go from water fast to dry fast back into a water fast? I wouldn't see why not.
Yeah.
That actually sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, it is a good idea, actually. It's something I've talked about before. So there's a method that I stole from Justin Howell. He calls it hybrid fasting. And it's absolutely phenomenal, where you take, 2 or 3 different fasting methods and you combine them into one protocol. And it's very powerful when you go from water to dry, because water is you could kind of like rehydrate yourself, kind of restore and refresh yourself. Then when the hunger pangs hit, you can hop into dry and eliminate the hunger pangs, get the added benefit of just accelerated weight loss, autophagy, et cetera, you got to break your dry with water anyway. So then you go back into the water for a day or two, and you can essentially do that indefinitely. So it's a great tool.
Good. And so you just mentioned the hunger, psychological hunger. Rose had asked earlier, how do you get over psychological hunger? Not hungry, but only eat because you don't know what to do with myself. This is something that you and I have talked about before. This is something I struggled with a lot when I was losing weight because I didn't have a plan either, right? Like I've told you before, like I would just fast for as long as I could until like my willpower gave in, the psychological hunger, and then I would eat, and then I'd beat myself up and start fasting again because I was like, I could have gone longer. So what I've found over the course of the last, 7 years is first and foremost having a plan. Because if I have a plan, then I can commit to it, and I have a little bit more resolve going into it to say, I want to eat, but I'm not actually physically hungry. I know it's psychological. I know I'm just bored. I just want something to distract me. But I already committed to the fact that I'm going to fast for 5 days, or I'm going to fast for 7 days. Other than that, like if we could solve the psychological hunger issue, Chris and I would be the most famous people in the fasting community. The best solution that I found for myself is honestly just to stay busy. Like my toughest times are between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. in the evening, usually on day one. After that, it gets much easier. So I always have something planned for around the 24 to 26 hour mark of a fast. Whether it's just going for a walk, or it's usually like playing games with my wife, going to the movies, just something to get me away from where the temptations could possibly be. Like that's my best answer.
And let me add to that. We have a lot of idle time when we take away food. See, we don't realize how much we eat food and how involved food is in our life. And you get to see that when you start fasting. So it's important to approach this process. You mentioned play a game with your wife. Well, approach the fasting process like it's a game you're looking to beat. And how do you beat any game? It's through practice. It's through trial and error. It's by being intentional, paying attention to, this boss does this, or there's this pattern, or whatever. Your body is very easy to read, learn, and understand when you're intentional about it. Don't allow a doctor to tell you, or even myself, to tell you about your body. Learn it for yourself. And if you do that, then you'll start learning your habits. You'll start learning where, you might be fasting, and it just so happens that there's some event going on. And it just so happens that during that event, you realize, dang, I didn't think about food not one time during this event. Okay, well, what was that event? How did it capture your attention? What was it about it, the experience that made you forget fasting? And can you implement that on your next fast, like intentionally? So, I think just having a plan and not going into it willy-nilly or whatever is the best way to kind of approach it.
Yeah. A couple of people have asked, so like Rose asked, if you can do a Zoom where a number of people can call in for support with scheduled times. And I think that ties into, what we were kind of talking about at the very beginning, because Dawn had asked, how do you find out about the challenge? She had said that she dry fasted for 2 days, wanted to go for 4 as Chris's protocol, according to your protocol, but the life didn't allow her to at the time. So just to reiterate that, I think what you said is you don't actually have a challenge in place for dry fasting yet, but it's something that you're thinking about putting together, and that would kind of answer those questions there. Once that's together, that would give you all the support and the community that you need in order to get through these dry fasts. Because that's another thing too, with the psychological hunger, like having that accountability for a lot of people. Like when my wife and I, when we fast together, like I bet you probably at least 50% of the fast that I've done in the last 4 years, I would have broken early if my wife weren't doing it too. Right. Because then I got to go to her and be like, yep, I cheated. I broke it. And you're still fasting.
Yep. Yeah. Well, let me say this. We have a community that is real. If you guys want accountability, if you want help, if you want to find a family, if you want to find more information, when are the challenges coming out? When are your retreats? You got to join ahacommunities.com. All right. That's what you got to join AHA. I'm gonna put the link in the chat for those in Instagram. It's literally www.ahacommunities.com. Okay. Also Instagram, you can find a link in the bio for that as well. Join AHA Communities is our free membership. So if you're looking for accountability, the community actually hosts daily calls. They're called PAC calls, PAC calls, PAC calls, peer accountability calls. So that way you guys can get the accountability you need, get the support you need. Also, our community is very intelligent. They're very well versed in fasting and stuff. So you're not just getting random information off the internet. You're getting it from people that are actually doing it and, you know, can help you in real life. Like they do meetups and all kinds of fun stuff. So I've been putting resources in the link in the chat for you guys, whether you're interested in the root products, whether you're interested in the oils, whether you want to join the free membership. I've been putting those links in the chat so you guys can check all that stuff out.
Yeah, good. That's perfect. And let me know when you launch that. If you do launch the dry fasting challenge, I'm gonna do that one with you and your community. I love your community. They're so active, and like you said, there's so many people in there are so knowledgeable. And not only that, they're like super supportive and positive. They're all about just seeing other people succeed. Real quick, Christy Anderson asked if I'm still eating low carbs. I dropped a comment, and I'm not sure if my comments are coming through. I kind of cycle back and forth. For the first like 2 years after I lost weight, I was really, really strict with it. I was absolutely terrified of carbohydrates, and I was low carb. I wasn't keto. I was just low carb. But now I kind of just cycle back and forth. So if I'm right now, like when I'm lifting heavy, I'm not low carb. I'm probably like moderate, which would be low carb compared to the standard American diet. But when I'm cutting, so like I'll lift heavy for, 12 to 16 weeks, and then I'll cut back again to cut back on some of the body fat that I gain when I'm building muscle. That's when I'll go back to low carb, but I never go zero carb because I've done keto before, and it doesn't work well for me. I just don't have great energy when I go on a keto diet.
Shout out to Rose. Thank you. We appreciate your donation, and yeah, Justin, she likes us, man.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think you've provided a lot of value here. And again, like I said, I'm super excited. I've got all these notes here. If I remember to, I can drop kind of my notes in the comments afterwards of like what the prep looks like. Cause I think that, again, you guys are going to think I'm just repeating myself, but I think it's so important just to recognize this because it's so profound for me. When I prepped properly for my last water fast, it was exponentially easier. So you better believe I'm going to follow this prep that Chris just outlined here, moving into my first dry fast. Because if I'm being honest, like I'm a little bit nervous about a dry fast, right? It's like the first time I did a fast, it's like, what's going to happen? I've never not drank water for a whole day. I'm gonna die. I'm gonna look like ET, right? When he gets sick and he's like, yeah. but no, I know I'll be all right.
Yeah, you're gonna do well. It's gonna be surprisingly easy, probably.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. Fingers crossed. I got 2 more questions if you're down for it, Chris. So someone asked, can dry fasting do something about Bell's palsy? I knew somebody who had Bell's palsy. They actually got it because they had Lyme disease. I was like, one side of their face had kind of just gone, like it gotten paralyzed, and it did resolve itself over time. But
you said it was from Lyme disease?
No, this was the person that I knew. Sorry, you know how I'm super
right. Yeah,
thing. No, this person was just asking, can dry fasting do something about Bell's palsy?
Right. But you're saying that the person that you because I don't know anybody who got it. So that experience is actually what helped me with understanding the thing about with this ease in the body, we'll often blame like certain things, systems or thing. But it's like if you could get to the core, if you can determine like what's the underlying problem, like what is the core issue that's causing this, then typically it's easy for me to be like, oh yeah, this will help because XYZ. So Bell's palsy is where you the facial muscles, like a facial muscle weakness on one side, right? Like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That's at least from my limited knowledge and experience of it, that's what it was. The person that I knew who had it, the half of their face, one side of their face was just kind of paralyzed. So they had like droopy eye, and this mouth, like when they smiled, like it didn't go up as much. And I'm pretty certain that person, it was a side effect of having undiagnosed Lyme's disease.
Okay. Yeah, I think that when we're talking about nerve damage, you know, inflammation is a major issue, you know, cause of nerve damage. Like even when it comes to paralysis, you know, the doctors will say, "Oh, it's impossible. You're paralyzed. You can't. There's nothing you could do." You would be surprised at what going to the right chiropractor could do for you in that situation, where you alleviate pressure, or you know, just like bulges, muscles, spasms, stuff that's just out of alignment, that's being stressed constantly because of some stimulus. And when you alleviate that, what type of relief you can get from it. I don't have a testimonial for Bell's palsy, and this is where the group can be a very big benefit. Joining the group and asking a question like this, because it may not be that no one's ever like resolved it. It just may be that it never got back to me, you know? Right. But what I will say is, and Justin, you said this earlier, dry fasting definitely will not hurt it.
Right.
So yeah, I would highly recommend utilizing dry fasting to rectify Bell's palsy, because, you know, if it's nerve damage, nerve weakness, it's very possible that it could be caused by inflammation. It also obviously could be caused by Lyme's disease, right?
Right. Right.
So it depends on, I guess, what's causing it, how quickly you may see benefit from something like dry fasting. But this is also why I always tell people now, if you're asking me, Chris, can you reverse Bell's palsy? Yes. Like I'm completely confident that you can reverse it. You know, I just don't have a testimonial to say, yeah, this person had it. But like, man, I had a guy who had seizures. He was getting seizures every day for 25 years, and he reversed it through a ketogenic diet and fasting.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So you're told, doctors will tell you, oh, you got this problem, you're always going to have it. And then you just find, well, they don't know how to reverse it. They don't know how to deal with it. That's fine. They're telling you their opinion. That doesn't mean that it's impossible. That's the thing we got to understand and remember. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And I do know that there is, I mean, they haven't said that they understand the mechanisms behind how it works, but there is evidence that fasting does have, you know, neuroregenerative capabilities. So you fast and you can repair some of those, you know, nerve connections. And if Bell's palsy is a nerve condition, then like you're saying, Chris, in theory, it could work. Worst case scenario, it ain't gonna hurt.
It's not going to hurt. By the way, shout out to Jonathan Brown. Thank you for the super chat. We appreciate that. If I was going to like give you advice, generally speaking, I would say you want to do raw food. You want to increase your water. I mean, eliminating sugar, meat, dairy product is just going to be automatic. Not because meat is necessarily bad per se, but we have to eliminate all the potential detractors from our healing. And meat is a big one just because of how it's processed. If you have your own farm, you raise your animals, or if you hunt natural food, fine. But most of us are going to the grocery store buying it. So I'm going to say stay away from the meat, dairy products, processed foods, refined sugars. Increase your raw food intake. Start making your food from scratch. You can still season it. It can still taste good and be enjoyable, but you gotta make stuff from scratch, adopt whatever fasting protocol that you feel resonates with you. And then for that particular issue, I would say get yourself a bottle of Clean Slate by Root. I put the link in the chat a little bit ago. Or you guys can just go to the Root Wellness brand. They're going to ask you for a referral code. It is a healthy alternative, all one word. Go get yourself Clean Slate and get yourself Zero In from Root Wellness brand. And I would make those my supplements. I would use those supplements. I would eat raw food. I would increase my water. I would fast 3 days a week, especially if you're doing dry fast, 3 days would be plenty. And then I would stay away from those foods. I mentioned alcohol, things of that nature. If you do that and you maintain that for, 45 days, 60 days, if you don't see the issue resolve, you'll probably see massive improvement, and you'll know you're on the right track. But that's like a general protocol that you could use. You just got to be consistent with it. And it'll be very hard for you not to see improvement doing that.
Yeah. All right. Last question I got here. If one works Monday through Friday at a desk job outside of the home, what would you recommend is the best days within a week to do a 3-day dry fast? I mean, so again, I haven't done a dry fast, but I know for me with water fasting during the week actually works better for me. Because, going back to what we were talking about, the psychological hunger and staying busy is like my number one thing. I'm more productive when I'm fasting, when I get into ketosis and I've got more energy. I would assume the same thing is true here with dry fasting. If you're a little bit nervous or hesitant about it, if it's your first 3-day dry fast, and you want to play it, on the safe side, then you might want to start on Friday so that you could spend Saturday and Sunday at home and not have to worry about, being productive at work. But after that first one, that's what I would probably do. My first one, I'd be like, all right, I'm going to play it safe. I'm going to see how it goes. And then once I've gotten through, kind of the nerves and the jitters of the first one, and I realize it's going to be fine, I'd probably do it during the week just so that it's easier. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I've been shaking my head the whole time. You nailed it. Yeah. It's, start on Friday and knock it out Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Because any fast you do, this is why the 3-day fast is so powerful. Day one is going to be doable. No matter what fasting method you're doing, day one's going to be doable. There might be some mental stuff going on, but we all know we could go a day without eating.
Yeah.
Like we all know that. You know what I'm saying? Even the scientists will tell you could go a day without eating. So day one, you feel a little bit more confident. You just ate yesterday. Half the day, if you're not just eating constantly throughout the day, your first meal's probably at lunch anyway. You're halfway through your work day. You skip lunch. You've probably done that before. You're home before anything abnormal ever happens. Anything that you've never experienced ever happens. You're back home, and then you're home for the weekend. But dry fasting is so much easier to do as it relates to hunger pangs and things of that nature. The low energy kicks in heavy when it does, but that's usually later on. So your first couple of days, you'll probably be okay, And then once again, Justin, with, just through experience, you'll see, okay, I feel comfortable. I did the 3-day before. Make sure you get yourself your journal, write it down, and then you'll see what works for you. So we did have we had a super chat, and I wanted to make sure to get all the super chats.
Yeah.
Lonnie, am I saying that right? Lonnie.
Yeah, that was the question I asked you. Like I said, for some reason I'm not able to pop them up on the screen, but yeah, that was the person asking about.
So we already answered
joint
this one.
pain.
Cool,
Yeah.
Cool. Look, I see the chat. There's so many questions in here.
Yeah.
And, Justin, I don't know. Sometimes you like to grab questions after the fact that we could do another. I don't know. We could, always come back and do another live.
Yeah.
This one's getting pretty long, but
Yeah,
I know
that's usually how it goes with us, right?
Especially on a topic like this.
Yeah.
I know people have gotten a lot of benefit from being here. I want to let you guys know that we do have our AHA retreat coming up in September. It's at the end of September, and I want to invite you all to come. It is going to be it's a 3-day, well, I think it's 2-day live event, technically 3 days. But I've got the details here. I'm gonna put the link in the chat for you all, and we would love to invite you guys to join. We are going to be, it's a virtual retreat. We're going to be creating an immersive experience for you, even though it's not in person. It's going to be an immersive experience. We're going to send you guys a retreat box. We're going to have some content available for you to consume ahead of time before the retreat begins. And we're also going to recommend that you guys do some special things in your personal space before the retreat or for the retreat. You know, maybe get yourself like an Airbnb for $34 a night or something like that, so that you can separate yourself from your daily life, maybe your children, your spouse, whatever the case may be, and focus on the retreat as if you were there. You know, we've got some pretty cool things we've got lined up. I'm not going to get into the details of it right now because we still have things forthcoming, but it's going to be an incredible experience. And if you guys are looking to learn more, have a deeper understanding of fasting and like all of the stuff, when we talk about holistic wellness, everything that encompasses being successful in your wellness journey, we're going to do deep dives in many different subjects, stuff that you don't see on the YouTube channel or the Instagram channel in depth. You know, we're going to take 2-3 days and we're going to dive deep. So if you guys are interested in learning more about that, I'm going to put the link here in the chat, and we would love to see you guys come and join. Justin, do you have anything coming up? Anything that you want to, you know, give out your social media and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm active most often on YouTube, so it's just Justin Dorff. Been posting some random videos of things I'm testing out, so keep your eyes peeled for when I test out this dry fast, because you better believe I will document that and let y'all know how it goes. Yeah, other than that, I'm trying to get down to Texas, man. I might come to one of your retreats, and that's where you have them, right? Texas?
So we are having our retreat in Texas this year. Typically we do it in Tennessee.
Ooh, even better. I like Tennessee.
Yeah, we've done it for like 2-3 years in Tennessee, and now we're moving it to Texas. Next time I think we might actually go to the DR. So do an international.
Count me in for that one.
Yeah, man, it's gonna be fun. All right, well, listen, I hope you guys enjoyed. Hit that like button before you run off. Maybe grab the link, share it with your friend. Anybody who wants to try the dry fasting, this is going to be a great immersive video to kind of like just share if you don't know anything about dry fasting. And of course, if you guys have more questions, we'll be going live. We'll be talking more about this. It's a big topic, so yeah, we got a lot more to get into. Subscribe to Justin's channel, and that's it, man. Thank you all for watching.
Yeah, thanks.